Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of In the Spotlight. I'm Mike Kenichi. I'm very excited tonight. We haven't spoken to him in a few years. We had him on about 4 years ago, and boy, what a big turn his career has taken since then. He was recently a graduate assistant at the University of Connecticut. Before that, he was a student assistant coach at the University of Tampa. He's a New Canaan High School graduate. And now he takes his next adventure as an assistant coach at Northern Arizona University. It is my honor to introduce to you the one and only Tim Russo. And Tim, I want to really thank you for coming on again. It's a real pleasure. And I'll tell you what, it's amazing what has happened since the last time you were on the show. But boy, you have worked so hard for this. And first off, congratulations, because it's really a tremendous accomplishment for you.
Yeah, it was. It's certainly. I think it's a bit of a shock. I think everyone's sort of extremely happy for me for sure. But I guess it was one of those things where we almost didn't expect it to happen this early. I'm 24 years of age. Not many 24-year-olds become assistants right out of the gate, especially from being a GA. But I really appreciate having me on. So I'm really excited.
Yeah. So Tim, before we talk about that, I know you were a big NBA fan. I'm not sure how much you're able to follow it now because you're very busy, but have you been able to keep track of the playoffs at all? And what are your feelings on this? It looks like Denver is going to take this thing.
Yeah, I have been able to watch a little bit. I'm still a diehard Pelicans fan. They had a rough go this season. They've had a lot of injuries. They didn't really have a chance to sort of blossom in the Western Conference. They had Brandon Ingram, who missed probably 30-plus games, and Zion played probably 15% of the season. So when those two guys don't play, you're going to be in trouble. So I'm really bummed about that. But with the NBA playoffs, I'm really happy to see the Heat, compete at this level. Eric Spoelstra is a Hall of Fame coach. He's someone that I'm starting to study, and he's just become, such a coach that makes all these great adjustments and gets his players to play hard for him. I think that's all he really can do. Denver's playing significant, really well. They have the best player on the planet in Nikola Jokic. They have a very underrated guard in Jamal Murray. So, they're so much more balanced than the Heat. But I think the Heat, with their physicality, with their toughness, with their culture, I think that they're going to find a way to win Game 4, which is I think tomorrow night on
Right.
ABC. So I want to see the Heat win for sure. I want to see a Game 5 back in Denver, Series 2-2. But Denver is just such a well-balanced team. Like Nikola Jokic had 30, 20, and 10 last night, and that's unheard of. I think he's one of 3 players to do that with Russell and Chamberlain. So just being able to see him play at the level he plays and the way he plays is wonderful. It's great for the sport of basketball. It's sort of great to sort of see a Cinderella story in the Heat, but also sort of see the dominance in the Nuggets. So it's been a really fun series for sure. And I'm just really looking forward to see what happens tomorrow night.
Yeah, and it's 2 teams that I don't think anybody really dislikes. I mean, like you said, I agree with you about the Heat, and I think Eric Spoelstra is the best coach in the NBA because look what he's done when he went through a lot of changes over the years with different players leaving, and this guy continuously gets this team in the playoffs. And I thought his best coaching job was when they blew that 3-0 lead, but managed to win Game 7. They played their hearts out in Boston. And that right there told me that it didn't, it could have been a collapse, but this guy is such a good coach who doesn't panic. And that's a big reason why they were able to win that Game 7.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think if there was going to be a team to come back down 0-3, it would have been the Celtics just because they have so much talent and they're so youthful, but they also have a couple of great veterans. And Brogdon, for example, that was one of the better series so far these playoffs. But like you just said, Spoelstra is such a great coach. He's really good on the road, so to get his players to play hard for him. So that's all he really can do. So really happy to see the Heat sort of close that one out. And hopefully they get a chance to win Game 4 and then go back to Denver with an even series.
I know the NBA has changed a lot over the years, Tim, and I know this is the type of basketball they play now. but you've been coaching at the collegiate level for 6 years now, so you know what type of offense and defense colleges run. Does it bother you a little bit that the NBA seems to just be so about the three-pointer? Because that seems to be the game now, just take threes. And I kind of miss the old style of the NBA. I know you were kind of too young to really see what that was, but I mean, I just feel like all they want to do is take three-pointers now.
Yeah, I mean, well, first and foremost, I don't know if I was coaching for 6 years. I was a part of two collegiate programs for 6 years,
Yeah.
student manager at Tampa, and then obviously GA at UConn. So I don't know if I was exactly coaching, but rest assured, it's been great to sort of look at the game differently now, which is awesome. I think with the NBA, a lot of it just comes down to having talent, and if you don't have the talent, you're not going to win games. So, as much as a lot of the NBA is like high pick and rolls, and sort of like let your guards play, and sort of play in like a driving kick action, and sort of play through your best players. I mean, that's sort of the way the NBA has sort of transcended. That's the way that
Right.
reliant on their offense and how they sort of run their schemes, and honestly how a lot of coaches coach. They put the ball in Jokic's hands because he's the best passer in the NBA who averages 10 assists. They put the ball in Jamal Murray's hand at the end of the shot clock because they know he could hit a step back three. But then you see the Heat who don't have exactly those quote unquote studs. They have a great player in Jimmy Butler and a very good player in Adebayo, but they don't necessarily have a player who can quote unquote take over a game. So a lot of their offenses, a lot of flare screens, they run a lot of ghost screens, which pretty much you see Duncan Robinson just run over the place. That's pretty much a ghost screen, just sort of fake a ball screen and then sort of run to the top of the key
Right.
for a three. So in the Heat, you see a little bit more offensive sets, and you see a little bit more structure. You see a lot in the Boston Celtics. You even see in the Nuggets a lot too, which is why it's been a really competitive series. But yeah, I think the NBA, it just a lot of it comes down to entertainment too. And if you don't have the talent and you don't have the entertainment, then you really don't have much of a franchise to work on. So as much as it's sort of bothersome to see that a lot of these games are high pick and roll games, and it's sort of like 130 to 131 final score. And a lot of the times you just see the best player sort of hog the ball for 18 seconds and then sort of pass it out. But that's just the way the NBA is, and the NBA playoffs is probably where most defenses played. So that's why you see a lot more ratings sort of skyrocket, just because the games are significantly closer, a lot less scoring. It's great for TV. But yeah, that's just sort of the way the game has sort of transformed. People want to shoot threes. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, it's definitely true. So, Tim, let's talk about your third season at the University of Tampa. It was a difficult season. I believe you guys went 7-21.
Yes.
And the first thing I wanted to ask you is, you're learning, so you can't view it as anything but a positive. But how difficult was it to come to practice sometimes, knowing that you guys were having this type of season you were having? The wins were, hard to come by. How difficult was that for you to be there every day? I mean, did you still enjoy it, or was it tough at times?
Yeah, that was a significantly rough year. That was the year after we sort of had like a lot of turnover with a lot of our players. Our defensive player of the year, and I think newcomer of the year for the conference, Marco Downer had transferred. We had a couple guards transfer. We didn't really have much of a foundation, so that was a huge rebuilding year. Granted, we didn't rebuild the way we would have liked to. We sort of caught the injury bug a little bit as well. Our coaching staff, seemed to be just in a tough state. We didn't really have a system to sort of motivate these guys. And you're right. We were 7-21 overall. We didn't even make our conference tournament. That was also the year right before COVID. So that was just one of those things where it was just a bad year. You're going to have bad years. In terms of motivating the guys, I mean, listen, we had Pat Bacon, who was a great scorer, who helped us out in a lot of spots. We had Derek Felder, who was a great guard for us. Brent Duncan was one of our better forwards. We just didn't really have, outside of those three guys, we didn't really have a foundation. It was sort of like a bunch of individuals, and we didn't really have much of a system there. And that was just one of those seasons where it was a bad year. That's what it come down to. But we came back the following season. We in the COVID season we were granted only
7 games, I believe, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
So we canceled 2 games because of COVID, but we ended our regular season 3-3.
right.
At Florida Tech in overtime in the first round of the conference tournament. So we bounced back for sure, and there was definitely more of a foundation there. But that junior year was tough. I mean, a lot of it just came down to just sort of, I wouldn't say just getting through it. That's probably the wrong way to put it, but just to sort of try to be as competitive and as hungry as possible. But we didn't really have the season that we wanted. We didn't have the record certainly didn't show for it at all. But I think that over the course of the year we got better. And Nova Southeastern, it was just a powerhouse, so they just sort of took the league by storm. And then them and Florida Southern really battled it out. I think Florida Southern won in that year
Yeah.
with Brett Hansen at their place, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, it was just one of those. It was just one of those bad years. You're gonna have bad years. So not much.
And now, were you satisfied with how your role was that third year? Because at that point now you're in your third year as a student manager. And again, I mean, you realized going in that you were going to have to sacrifice a little bit. You're learning and you're on a coaching staff, but you're more like you said, you kind of have to do some of the things that the coaches don't necessarily have the time to do. So you had to put in your time, but at the same time, you're getting the benefits of learning the game better. So, I mean, were you happy as far as how that went your third year?
Yeah, I mean, that was the first year. I think it could have been the first year that I was appointed as student assistant coach, but I know that it was also the same year that we hired 2 other assistants. We hired Tyler Zacher, who's still a close friend of mine. I think he's still on the staff today with Justin Pecker, who's been a big mentor to me. And then we had hired Mark Borders, who was a former player for Richard Schmidt back in the day. And, that was sort of the first year we sort of had adjustments with our staff. So I think a lot of it just came down to trying to fit everybody in and see where everyone's role was. And at that period of time, I think it was my first year being a student assistant coach. I was obviously, more so a head manager, but I guess I had growth and responsibilities, and I was able to do more in the office and have a little more say in practice and sort of run the managerial staff, that we had, which was great. So, and being able to learn from Schmidt, even though that that year wasn't as promising as we would have liked, it was still great to sort of be around the guys, and it was great to work with Justin Pecker, who I'm still in contact with this day. He's been a wonderful mentor to me. So it was great to learn, and a lot of it was different in the way of learning. It was almost like, deciphering things that we shouldn't do or things that we could do better in this area, or sort of figuring out what system fits best with certain players and certain personalities. So I get to learn from that standpoint significantly. So that certainly helped me with my people skills, and really helped with me being approachable with collegiate players. And I learned a lot from that year. And the best part about it is that we bounced back the next year, even though we only granted 6 games or 7 games. It was great to sort of have one last ride. But I miss Tampa a lot. I know that they had sort of a,
I think 8-18 this year they went,
yeah.
but the year before that they bounced back and went 16-10. So that's what I was going to ask you too, Tim. You were over there enough to see how things go. How difficult is it for a Division II school like that to maintain a good record every year? Because as you could see, they won 16 one year, then they go backwards and they win 8. How hard is it to continue to have that level of success?
Well, I think the biggest part of their big jump to 16-10 was Max Jones, who averaged 20 a game for them that year. He was in his sophomore year. He was significantly more comfortable than he was during the COVID year. He had the ball in his hands a lot. He sort of ran the offense. He sort of orchestrated everyone else getting better. He was a big reason why that they had 16 wins that year. And because that he is probably Division I talent, he decided to transfer to Cal State Fullerton, where he averaged, I think, 10 points and 4 rebounds, I think, for them. And they lost in the championship game for them in the Big West to UCSB, who made it to the tournament. I think they were maybe a 14 seed. But in terms of Division II teams being competitive, listen, I mean, a lot of it just comes down to trying to recruit players who are borderline Division I players, but could be very, very good Division II players. And a lot of that comes down to recruiting and trying to find the right guys in the sense of, maybe trying to find a guy who has a couple low major Division I offers and taking a chance on him. I know Nova Southeastern does a great job with that. I think one of their players just transferred over to Division I. I can't quite remember the Division I, but that's what these teams have to do. They have to find low major Division I players, but could be very, very successful in the Division II level. So, like I said, with the NBA, it comes down to having talent and being able to have a system in place to get your players to play hard for you. And if you don't have that, then you're going to struggle. But that's probably the Division II secret. Just trying to find sort of like the diamonds in the rough, if you will, and trying to put them in your system and going from there.
Right. So, Tim, I mean, you graduate college, you get your bachelor's degree in sports management, and then you get this tremendous opportunity where you get a graduate assistant position at the University of Connecticut. You're from Connecticut, so I mean, a part of you had to want to be there to have that, chance to be with an elite program like UConn. But let me ask you, how was that first year? Because I'm sure as much as you were learning, it was difficult at times too, because it's a premier program. And again, the expectation is to compete for a national championship every year. So basically, again, it's all about sacrificing, but you were willing to do that. So just talk about that first year and what that was like.
Yeah, that first year was very challenging for me. I had went from Tampa where I was quote unquote a big fish in like a relatively medium sized pond, and then I went to Connecticut and I was a tadpole in an ocean. So it was a major change, and I really had to adjust the way I sort of worked. The hours are significantly more. They're harder hours. It requires significantly more effort, a lot more sacrifice, and I just went there and I just did it. But my first year was a lot of managerial duties, a lot of operational duties, just to sort of get my feet wet with everything and sort of earn everybody's trust day by day. And that took me a good 6 months before I really got to really know everyone's personalities and all that. So it really took a lot of observation and a lot of patience. And I had spoken to a couple of my mentors. And I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Tyler Sweeney, my best buddy, who went to New Canaan with me. He played college basketball for a couple of years at Occidental.
Right.
And, everyone just kept saying, stick the course, stick the course, stick the course. And sooner or later that first year, I was able to just gain a little bit more responsibility day in, day out. One day I'm mopping floors, the next day I'm picking up water bottles. For me, that's a win. I don't know if that's a win for a lot of people, but that's a win for me. So I just made small jumps while also sort of being relatively close with the other managers and, the other graduate assistants. So theoretically speaking, I was actually a graduate manager, which I guess is quote unquote a graduate assistant. I know every school is different with how they label with their employees, but it was just small step after small step after small step. And then eventually, I believe that I just earned enough trust to where my second season, I was able to immerse myself with more film and being close with the video coordinator, Matt Johnson, who went to Tampa, who I familiar face and name that I knew, and a person that Justin Pecker reached out in efforts of me. So being able to work alongside him my second year was great. So it was just those little steps every single day. It took a lot of sweat. It took a lot of sacrifice. It took a lot of hours in the gym, a lot of hours in the office. But, and despite the fact that we lost in the first round in Mexico State, where Chetty Allen had dropped 37 points, it was a great learning experience. It wasn't one of my finer moments as a GA because I guess I was very upset with the way that we lost. But I guess just sort of the logistics behind it all. We're traveling to Buffalo and, the practice times and having a tough time getting into the gym actually, just because the managerial and operational duties just sort of require you to sort of stay back and make sure nothing's left behind. And it was sort of my turn, I guess, to sort of make sure that was the case. And I guess my dues had paid off, and we had a great second year. We had a wonderful run in the tournament where we beat San Diego State in the championship. So it was just little by little, step by step, responsibility by responsibility. Everything came into motion, and everything just sort of went the way it was supposed to be. And I'm really glad it worked out. But that first year was very challenging. I had to learn how to sort of adjust myself, and I think I've done a pretty good job of that, especially into the second year.
Yeah, and the thing is, though, too, Tim, is the most important thing about you is that you kept coming back every day, because sometimes that could be overwhelming and you may just want to pack it in. That was never a thought in your mind, obviously, and you did what you had to do. And what people don't understand too about graduate assistants or graduate managers is they don't even get to be on the court. They're watching the games from the stands. So you had to see all the games from the stands. But again, you were willing, because at the end of the day, the 2 years you were there, maybe you weren't as involved with the game aspect as you'd like to be, but you got to learn so much more. And that's what I keep saying is it was almost like, when a doctor goes to medical school, then he does his residency, they're learning. That's kind of what you were doing. You were continuing to learn, and look where it's got you today. So all that sacrifice, all the things you had to do that maybe sometimes weren't a lot of fun, it paid off in the end for you. And I'm sure you wouldn't trade any of that.
Yeah, like I said, it took a lot of sacrifice, against that game in New Mexico State. We were sitting in the UConn sort of family section, which is right behind the bench. But I think a lot of what I had to learn was sort of how to observe. And I know the coaches sort of hate when I say these euphemisms, but like I had to be a fly on the wall and to sort of just be so observant and so aware of what was going on. So a lot of times during the games, I wouldn't be on the bench. I would be like in the back corner with the rest of the managers with the stools and the bottles and the towels and ready to get going during media timeout. So a lot of the time I just sort of watched Coach Hurley and the way he sort of coached on the sidelines. And, I watched, how everyone sort of operated on the bench and how it was organized and how timeouts were called, how plays were drawn up. I just sort of literally just looked over people's shoulders. I think that was a big reason why I believe I have gained a little bit more confidence in that area. But it was a very challenging first year for sure, as anyone would expect. And Division I basketball, it requires so much sacrifice. And if you're not going to show up every day, there'll be a guy behind you in Alaska who would move across the country to have that opportunity. So I just tried to make it a rule of myself just to do it and just sort of get through it and learn a lot and have great experiences along the way. Being able to be a part of UConn has been a blessing. They're the reigning champions. It's sort of surreal how that all sort of turned out. And just to work with, like you said, a premier program and such a well-run organization led by Hurley and Luke Murray and Tom and Kamani, and just being able to learn from them and sort of observe how they coach, especially in practices where that's closed doors and no one really sees that. And that's just sort of a great resource just to be able to be a part of it. And I'm truly grateful to be a part of it. And thank you so much to the coaches, for them, for allowing me to sort of sit in and just sort of be a graduate manager. So I'm really thankful for that.
And I think about this too, Tim. If you didn't do a good job that first year, if you weren't doing what was asked of you and working hard and putting the time in, the commitment in, you wouldn't have been asked to come back a second year. And you were able to come back a second year. And that just tells me that even when there were rough times, the coaching staff, especially Coach Hurley, saw your dedication to the program. And that's a big reason why, you're able to come back for a second year.
Yeah. You're not guaranteed a second year. You're not guaranteed a second day, that is. So if you don't do a good job, and as much as a lot of people say that coaches don't see the small stuff, the coaches, especially UConn, they see everything. So, and how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you're not mopping up the floor the right way, and then somebody slips and then you get yelled at. So that's just the way it goes. So how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you go in there, busting your tail and giving it everything you got, whether that be picking up waters or maintaining punctuality amongst players and academics or what have you, then you're going to do fine and you're going to and a lot of it's just jobs that you may not get thanked for, but jobs that need to get done. So it comes down to getting the job done and making sure you do a good job with that. And I, in any Division One program, as people think that coaches don't notice like the small stuff, they do. They really do. And people just have to sort of realize that and just take whatever responsibility they have and do it to the best of their ability. And if they don't do that, then they're not going to get the trust with the next thing or the next thing. So, in order to move on to another trust point, if you will, you have to do the small responsibility stuff, which is what I had to do my first year. A lot of managerial stuff. So, but a lot of it was a learning experience, and I'm really glad I was able to, like I said, earn my trust gradually. So, it took 2 years, but listen, I mean, you couldn't have done a better job of it. You know, like you couldn't have asked to do it any other way. So you sort of have to go through those rough patches, and you have your doubts along the way, but you just sort of have to pick yourself up, dust off, and just get ready for the next job.
Exactly. So Tim, tell me what the experience was like being at the Final Four and this team wins the national title. I mean, it had to be surreal for you, even no matter what your role was, you were a part of this and you got to be a part of this championship team. But what was that experience like being at the Final Four? And let me tell you, in all the years I've watched UConn, and they've won 5 national titles now, this team made it look so easy. I mean, I know San Diego State made a run with about 6 minutes to go. They cut it to 5. But this team really wasn't tested in the tournament at all. I mean, it was just unbelievable how easy they made it look.
Yeah, listen, I have never seen in my however many years I've watched basketball, especially in the last 6 years, and just sort of watching from afar at different collegiate programs. I've never seen a team be so dominant as this past year's UConn team. Every piece that we had fit. We had great leadership in Andre Jackson. We had wonderful performances by Jordan Hawkins and Adama Sanogo. Those three sort of set the tone for us every day in and day out. And we had a lot of great role players who accepted their roles. And Joey Calcaterra, who's a great friend of mine, and Naheem Aline. And we had a tremendous two-headed monster in the front court, Sanogo and Donovan Clingan. We had the readiness of Alex Caravan, who was just so ready to play because he had taken the necessary requirements to join UConn early before his quote-unquote freshman year of this year. And he made that sacrifice to come early and not play, but having him was a huge plus. Tristan Newton had a wonderful performance in the in the national championship with 19 points, 10 rebounds. And as many people don't think that he's a point guard, he is. He makes everybody around him better. He accepted the role of sort of replacing RJ Cole, which is not necessarily easy, because RJ has such a pedigree with the Hurley family. He is such a talented guard, but Tristan took on that challenge and he ran with it. And guess what? He's national championship because of it. So I was really pleased with the way the team had handled the tournament. Losing against Marquette in the semis in the Big East tournament over at MSG was such a sort of a gut punch that we had to take. And like I said, I didn't score a basket, I didn't drop a play, I didn't call a timeout, but the way the team responded, the way everyone's minds had shifted towards the NCAA tournament after that nothing I've ever seen before in my entire life. So, kudos to this, to that team, and I'm extremely grateful to be a part of it. Just the pure dominance that I've seen. And granted, I watched from 30 rows back because that's just the way that the luck sort of runs out with the the GAs and the manager that I am. So, being able to just even be in the building is just a blessing in itself. Being able to travel to a bunch of different places for these tournaments or for these games, like everything was just true a blessing, and everything just worked out the perfect way. We won by an average of 20 points in that tournament run. Just a pure dominance, just a pure readiness, a maturity, the toughness. Everything was instilled by the coaches who did a wonderful job this year. Everything just sort of fell into play, and it was wonderful. And sometimes you sort of get speechless because it's just like, how else can you explain it? We were just the best team in the country, and we showed that. And it was just such an amazing run. I'm still shocked by it, by the way. I'm still in disbelief. But
Yeah.
Hurley added a great piece to his resume. The players have so much more experience, and everyone's just ready to go. So I kept in contact with all of them. Everyone's just shifted gears and getting themselves ready, and it's just been quite a ride. So I'm truly grateful for UConn.
Now, I know you don't like to draw a lot of attention to yourself, but were you able to cut a part of the net down? Did you get that opportunity? Talk to me about that. Yes.
Yeah. So during the Gonzaga game in our Elite Eight, I was not a part of that celebration, and I know a lot of people probably don't know that. I was sort of hiding out in the media tent, just because it was such an emotional trip to Vegas. Just because it just took so much mental strength just to sort of get through that experience with playing Arkansas and Gonzaga. Granted, we won by like 28 points thinking Gonzaga, and we beat Arkansas by 23 or something like that. So, we handled our business properly. But for me, I think I just had a tough time in that part. That was just when I just didn't have – I don't think I had a great trip personally as a graduate manager. I feel like I could have done a lot better. And I didn't want my bad quote-unquote mojo or I guess my attitude to sort of affect the players. Not that it would, not that I'm like the head coach or anything. So it didn't affect them whatsoever, but I felt like I shouldn't have been a part of it anyway. So I just sort of stayed back and made sure that, that our video feed translated to our laptop and make sure that it was good to go to sort of show the coaches on the flight back to Connecticut. But yes, my father made a big deal about it on radio. So of course I had no opportunity to sort of hide out and let the players do it and let the coaches sort of enjoy it, which is what I would have done. But yes, I did have to climb up the net, and I did cut a small piece off, and that's just sort of how I handled it. I just sort of let everyone go first, and I just sort of trickled in and got my small piece, and then just ran back down the ladder. So Luke Murray made a big deal about it too. So I had to make sure that that he saw me do it too, because he didn't see me against Gonzaga when we went into the Final Four. So I had to make sure that Luke saw me climb up the ladder, and he did. And thank God.
And the thing is, Tim, is that whatever happens going forward in your career, you'll always remember that moment. You'll always remember that you got to cut a piece of the net down. And I was just thinking about it. You were saying how you wanted to get the video ready for the coaches on the plane back and stuff like that. And people don't realize how important that is, because those coaches are relying on that. They want to be able to break down film and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's not like there is no such thing as a spare part. Everybody plays a role in a team winning a championship, just like in any sport, baseball, basketball, whatever, football, whatever it is. There's always those guys behind the scenes that do that. And really, I'm sure a lot of coaches who are coaching today probably did that when they were your age. So, I mean, again, I know the technology is different now, but the point I make is that while you may not think it's as significant as other people do, it really is, because you are helping the coaches and those players when you're setting up, the video and stuff like that. So, I mean, you'll always have that moment no matter what happens.
Yeah, it's a moment that I will never forget. And being able to win a national championship, people have coached for 20 plus years and players have played for X amount of years, and they don't even get a chance to sniff that. And the fact that I was able to sniff that at 24 years of age, with such a talented team, with such a highly intelligent coaching staff is so surreal. So I'm just incredibly thankful and grateful to be a part of that. And my father made a big deal about getting a piece of that net, so I had to make sure that he didn't go on national television or radio and sort of spew out information how I'm not enjoying it, when I am, for sure.
Yeah.
But going back to what you said about getting the film ready and making sure that sort of translated properly with the feed that we used, and making sure that transported properly and made sure that it was visible, and it had, I guess, the ability to sort of clip up plays or just clip up the game. I guess, like I said earlier in this part of the show, no job is too small. And as much as a lot of the times people think that the small stuff doesn't matter, and a lot of the times that they think that the coaches don't notice it, they really do. So you have to do every job that you get to the best of your ability. So you might have to get a coach coffee, but you have to make sure that that's the best coffee he's drank. even though you may not have poured it, but you have to make sure that it has been properly delivered. No job is too small. No job is unimportant. Everything happens for a reason. You are trusted with a particular responsibility for that reason because you're good at it and you know you can be trusted. A lot of it just comes down to earning trust. And I was trusted with that particular responsibility with making sure the film was all set. And I had to make sure that it was in a good state. And like I said, I didn't want my poor attitude or sort of my emotions make the most of people who are closely around me. And I wanted to make sure that everyone had their flowers and make sure that everyone celebrated. And as much as I probably should have been on that ladder, I know everyone made a big deal about it, but let's just say I sort of made up for it for the national championship. So, like I just said, no job is too small. No job is unappreciative, and you just have to do it with the best of your ability, and you have to make sure it gets done. So.
Exactly. So let's talk about Northern Arizona University. And I mean, Tim, it's a big deal because now you're no longer a student manager. You're no longer a graduate manager. Now you're an assistant coach. Like that intern label or whatever you want to call it is taken off now. You are now officially an assistant coach, and it's going to be your first job. So you're always going to, your first official assistant coaching job. So you're always going to remember that. But just talk about how it came about and what you look forward to go when you get going.
Yeah. So the way it started was, my parents had traveled to the Final Four in Houston just to support me in the UConn team. They brought one of my brother's closest friends, and Ryan McAleer, and they brought my dad brought one of his closest friends, Doug Smith. And during one of the days, obviously, it was one of the practice days. So I was sort of about with the UConn team. We had to go to a couple of different practice gyms, I think, and I wasn't around. So my parents took it upon themselves to go on a walk, and my dad is, the baseball historian that he is, so he wanted to walk around Minute Maid Park, which is where the Astros play. He went on Sirius to sort of explain the story, but he went and just wanted to sort of see the scenery of it. I think he just wanted to show off the fact that he's been to that stadium probably half a dozen times because of the Astros being in the World Series and having these deep MLB postseason runs. But lo and behold, they run into a gentleman in Shane Burkhardt, who's the head coach here in Northern Arizona. And of course, my dad probably, he says that he asked for a picture, but in actuality, I'm sure my dad probably just talked his ear off because he would talk to a tree if it was interesting. So my father probably just talked his ear off, and they got to talking, and Coach was like, "So, what are you guys doing here?" And my dad said, "Well, we're here to support our son, who's the graduate manager for UConn." And they got to talking and eventually exchanged numbers. Coach Burkhardt wanted to get in front of me. He wanted to sort of get to know me, sort of exchange pleasantries, and just sort of see how I was with UConn and my responsibilities. So we ended up meeting at the Final Four. We had an in-person meeting for about 30 minutes, which was great. It was great to get to know him. It was great to sort of give him an idea of what I do for UConn and what he sort of envisions with his program and his culture that he is building up. And then after that, we went on a couple of different phone calls, a couple of different Zooms, and then it was sort of like radio silent for like probably close to 2 weeks. I think a lot of it just had to come with, recruiting and reconstructing his staff and reconstructing his team. So, and I had to finish up with UConn and make sure I got my master's. And so we didn't really get a chance to speak to each other for that 2 week period. And then on Monday, May 8th, he calls me up. He wants me to join his staff at whatever capacity he felt would fit best. I ended up telling, Luke Murray and Tom Moore, who have been two wonderful mentors to me at UConn. And they said I probably got to take it. But my father made a good point of visiting the campus first, just to sort of get a feel for the culture and, where it's located. Not that you can go for a job based off its location, but I've never been to Arizona, let alone Flagstaff. So I figured that it was probably the smart idea. So I went out to visit on Monday, May 15th, and I came back the Wednesday the 17th. So I had spent 2 full days there. I met the coaching staff. I met a player or two. I met a lot of people in the office. I met the deputy athletic director. And I just got to know Coach a little bit more and the way he envisions his culture and the way that he believes that his program should be run. And then after 2 great days of presenting myself and doing everything I possibly could to make a great first impression, I get a ride from Coach at 5:30 in the morning because I had like a 6:40 flight back to Phoenix, and then Newark. But in the car, at 5:30 in the morning that Wednesday, I was under the impression that I was going to get hired as a fourth assistant, which is a new rule the NCAA can take if they want to extend their staff by one or two people. Not every school can do that because of budgets, but it is a new rule where colleges and universities can extend their basketball staffs, or I guess their athletic programs, and adding a couple extra coaches or people who get the opportunity to get on the floor, what have you. So I was under the impression I was going to get the fourth assistant, which would have been a little more limited with recruiting and sort of being on the floor. But I get in the car on that Wednesday morning, and he offers me the third assistant job.
Wow. That's
just,
awesome.
Just the luck of the draw that happened. So I went home to sort of tell my mom and dad, discuss a couple financials. I give Coach Burkhardt a call, and he says, yeah, let's do it. So it's on the contract, and I came out here Memorial Day weekend just to sort of get my feet wet and work some of these camps that we're hosting, and here I am. So I'm jumping into the fire a little bit. It's been a big jump, but it's an adjustment I'm going to have to make. These jobs don't come around very often. I'm 24 years of age. I have to make this jump. I think that I have to go out here and just do my best and learn and just get some bruises. So it's going to be tough, but I'm looking forward to the challenge. And it's been what the luck that I have had over the course between UConn winning and me getting here is uncanny. Like, you can ask my father about it all day you want. Any day you want, you call in on his radio show. He will tell you that the amount of luck that we had as a family, as me, it's just like you can't even paint the picture because that's how faint it is. So it's just been crazy luck.
Well, Tim, I think that in anything you do in life, sometimes you have to have luck. But I also think it's a credit to you, like I said, the work that you put in, because nowadays, like not everybody in their early 20s has a good idea what they want to do. Sometimes they want to take it easy and they want to wait a little bit because they still want to have fun and kind of hang out with their friends, things like that. But like from the time you entered the University of Tampa, you've been working so hard to get to this point. And I mean, that to me says a lot about you because you're willing to put the sacrifice. I keep using that word, but I can't say it enough. But also the devotion to something that you love, because you have to love what you do if you're going to succeed at it. And you've had a passion for this sport going back to when you were like 6 years old. So, I mean, this is really what it's culminated into, this opportunity. So I think while, yes, there's been luck, you also have to, be proud of yourself for how hard you work to get to it.
Yeah. And my pal, like I said earlier on the show, Tyler Sweeney has never let me live a moment down where I could be proud of myself. So he's been a wonderful friend to me over the course of the years I've known him since middle school. And my father as well. Just being able to say that I'm an assistant coach at this age on a Division I staff, like, you just can't say it enough. Like, you can't pat yourself on the back enough. But I try to be as modest as possible. I try to be as humble as possible, just because, like, I think you said it best. I don't want to have too much of the spotlight, just because I think it's a little embarrassing personally, and I just sort of want to just do the job. And I'm not really too concerned about sort of like the, everything that sort of comes with it, with like announcing it. I know my father made a big deal about it on his radio show, so it wasn't it was a little embarrassing to hear that, but that's just the way he does. It's the way he tells stories, and he wears his heart on his sleeve, and he does a great job of sort of narrating what happened there. But yeah, I mean, it's just I don't think it's truly hit me that I'm on a coaching staff. I don't know why it hasn't. It almost seems not normal, but I almost feel like that it's one of those things where I don't think I'm gonna feel it until the first game.
Right.
I'm not really gonna have that anxiety, that nervousness, until I'm sitting on the bench next to Ben Johnson and Gary Bell on the sidelines. I don't think I'm gonna feel it until then. So I'm just gonna enjoy it for what it is for right now and do my best to earn my stripes and get my feet wet and make sure I do a good job this summer, so I can enter in this upcoming season to rebuild that program on a great run that they had. NAU lost to Montana State in the conference championship at the Big Sky, and if they won, they would have had an automatic bid to the tournament. And Montana State also played Kansas State. And they had lost by 12 in the first round as a 14 seed. So, NAU was 7 points away from making the NCAA tournament. So it's a wonderful staff to be a part of. It's a wonderful program. I'm excited to, sort of continue this rebuild and continue the name and image that Coach Burkhardt wants and, wants to instill on the community and in college basketball. So I'm incredibly grateful. And I'm just really, really excited for the challenge.
Yeah. And Tim, you can't ask for, like I said, this is your passion. You can't ask for a better job to do. I mean, you talk about everything. You're going to get to break down film. You're going to go on recruiting trips at times. You're going to be at practice every day doing something you love. And then the game nights, I mean, those are going to be the most fun, because even though you're going to be nervous at times, just like every coach is, every player is, it's so much fun going through it and being able to be a part of it and feel the atmosphere and the excitement that goes with it. That, I mean, it's almost like Christmas came early for you.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of that's just good stress, being able to experience sort of like the road games and the road trips and being able to come back to our home gym and see our home fans and play under pressuring situations. So all of that's good stress, and I think, like you said, hit it best. I think that's just sort of that thrill is going to be incredible, and I'm really just thankful to be a part of a staff that took me on, take me out on a limb pretty much. And it's just gonna be great. I'm excited. I'm excited to learn. I'm excited to make a name for myself over here in the Arizona area. Recruiting will be a little challenging for sure, but I'm gonna have a great mentor in Ben Johnson, who actually recruited Klay Thompson to go
Oh, wow.
to Washington State. So you can't ask for a better recruiting partner, or you can't ask for somebody who's going to show you the ropes better than Ben Johnson. And Gary Bell played at Gonzaga, who's been a part of a lot of successful programs. He runs our offense. He's so intelligent. He's a great guy. You couldn't ask for a better staff to start off in, and to learn from, and to sort of earn your stripes and learn how to negotiate with. I would say negotiate, that's the wrong word, but just be able to interact with everybody. You can ask for a better situation. So I'm in a great spot, and I'm really looking forward to it for sure.
Well, Tim, I want to thank you for giving me a few minutes today. I know you're very busy, but you took the time to do it, and I really do thank you for that. But I also applaud you and congratulate you, because this is very exciting and this is well earned. I mean, you've worked so hard for this. When I talked to you 4 years ago, I mean, I could see that you were determined to make this happen. And since those 4 years, I mean, you got a national championship on your resume now. Now you're assistant coach at a legit college, and I think that's awesome, and that's a credit to you, like I said. So congratulations, and I really look forward to it. I followed the University of Tampa. Now I get to follow Northern Arizona, so I get to learn more about that program, which is very cool for me as well. So best of luck, and just keep doing what you're doing, because you're doing great.
Thank you. I really appreciate having me on. I remember that interview 4 years ago. I was entering probably, I think, my junior year at the time at Tampa, and just it was. I watched it the other day, and I remember my dad said that it's going to be incredibly challenging, and he obviously has faith in me, but it was, getting into coaching is not easy. So being able to say that I have broken that barrier and sort of put my foot in the door is incredible. And, I get to laugh at my dad for saying that it's really hard. It really was, but I was able to do it, I guess, at this speed. So,
And you know what I find ironic, Tim, is obviously I think your dad was maybe like, I want to say 29, 30 years old when he got the big break at FAN, but he was on a radio station, I believe, when he was 22 years old, or 23. So the two of you have fulfilled your dreams at a very young age. Like, he started out in radio at like 22, and now you're at a college as an assistant coach at 24. So it's almost like your paths are similar, even though two different careers, they're similar. So, I mean, it just goes to show that the work ethic in your family is a big reason why you guys are successful.
thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. And, my brother Collins will be the next Mad Dog. He works for the
Yeah.
ESPN over in Madison, Wisconsin. He's going to be a senior. My sister wants to enter the film industry, so she's going to be moving out to California to pursue that. And my brother Patrick's going to be going to college, Columbia College of Chicago, to study film as well. So The work ethic, it comes from my dad, but got to give my mom, Gene Russo, a ton of credit.
Right.
A lot of my dad's radio show, he says that Shane Burkhardt asked for a picture with my dad, but my mom always likes to say that Coach Burkhardt liked my mom better, which in fact he did. She got her number, or no, she got his number, and that's how this whole thing started. So kudos my mom, Gene Russo, for doing that. So
You know what they say about mothers, they always look out for their kids, and
yeah.
they're the number one fans. But I really do appreciate you coming on, and best of luck. And like I said, I really look forward to seeing you and this program, and I'll be following it. So just keep doing what you're doing, my friend.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being on. Would love to stay in touch, obviously, and we'll let you know. Hopefully, Lumberjacks can can make this tournament, which we will next March, and we'll go from there.
Sounds great. I really appreciate it again. Thank you, Tim. And
Thank
folks, there you have it. If you watched the interview with Tim Russo 4 years ago, you could see this kid had a desire and he had a goal. He wanted to be a coach in some level, whether it was high school, Division II, collegiate, Division I, whatever it might be. But he had that goal that he wanted to do it. He was willing to sacrifice a lot. I can remember after his sophomore year of college, he spent a whole summer in Indianapolis doing an internship to learn as much as he can about what he was doing. And he's continued to do that. And he's had stops in the University of Tampa, the University of Connecticut. He got to be part of a national championship. But now I really feel like Tim Russo has arrived, because he is a assistant coach on a very respectable program. And I just know he's going to do great things. He's going to be so invaluable to that program, because he will give 150% each and every day. And that's why he is going to be very successful in life, because nothing stops this kid. He wants to achieve every goal he sets out to do. And I have no doubt in my mind he will do so. For In the Spotlight, I'm Mike Kenichi saying good night, everyone.